Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm joined with a special guest, James Bowman. Welcome from Inflection. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Zara. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, slowly taking over from Jordan. I'm kicking him out slowly.
Yeah, Jordan is MIA today. No, he's busy, really big time for the business at the moment. So I'm excited to have you in his place. And we're excited to have a chat through this episode today because it's an area that we've spoken about a lot recently, and particularly in quite a lot of detail over the last week, because we thought it's a really good opportunity to share this strategy, particularly coming into the summer season, the silly season, the busy season. And our focus today is really on hospitality. It's an area that is often forgotten about in the digital space. We talk quite a lot about service-based businesses, e-commerce businesses, but there's a lot of opportunity for hospitality organizations and businesses. So cafes, pubs, restaurants in the digital space, and how we can really leverage these channels. So if you manage a restaurant, cafe, pub, if you know someone that does it, this is probably a really great episode to listen to because we're going to dive really deep into effective and actionable strategies. And I think that's really important, the actionable part for you and how you can really make the most of this season. So James, let's kind of dive into, I guess the first thing is obviously thinking about that initial digital presence or your digital footprint, in other words. And some of the first things that we think about is obviously your Google My Business listing. So how important is that?
Yeah, super important. Important. I think it's often the first touch point people have, or potential customers have, with a cafe or a restaurant or any of those kind of venues you just mentioned. So having that up to date is an essential, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so when we talk about up to date, obviously it's like your business opening hours, your location, those kinds of things. What else would be important?
Yeah, I think, certainly business hours is 101, I would say. Certainly there's nothing worse than rocking up to a restaurant that you think is open or trying to call a restaurant or even just your local fish and chip shop or something like as basic as that, that is not open when it says it is, or they're on holidays or whatever that is. So making sure that's up to date, your hours, your closing days, those sorts of things. And then, I'm a big fan of restaurants or any kind of venue having up-to-date menus as well, because, my partner's a classic example of this. She eats with her eyes.
Shout out to Katie.
She eats with her eyes, but also is somewhat of a picky eater, so she won't necessarily want to go somewhere completely cold. She'll want to see what is potentially available before committing to a restaurant or a bar or whatever that is. So, I think having that up-to-date. I often go to Google My Business listings where the menu's 3 years old and you don't really know if it's up to date or if it's even the same food at all. And then the other one I would say is having up to date images of your food or your drinks or things like that as well. Again, for those visual types of people, and everyone online's generally visual, so having that so people can get an idea of the vibe, get an idea of the food, the atmosphere, like the venue itself, I think is really, really kind of beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you said Katie's really keen on it, but I know that anyone in my friendship group, myself, my husband, anyone, my mum, that's how we figure out where we want to go, right? It's like, especially if you've never been to an area or you're on holidays or you're visiting somewhere or you're up the coast, you don't know what restaurants are around. So what you do is like, I really feel like X tonight Vietnamese or pizza or burgers. You put it into Google Maps and then you see what pops up.
Totally.
And that's the first thing you do, and it's how you figure out. And it's, you look at the reviews as well, and the ranking and the rating.
Yeah.
And then you look at because I'm not going to a 3.5.
No, sub 4.
4.5, 4.7. I'm opening it up and I'm looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And I think that probably dives into the reviews part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, if it's not something you're actively curating or trying to gain, whether you are or aren't, you're going to be getting reviews. People generally leave reviews online as well when they have a negative experience, certainly more oriented to do that than when they have a positive one. So I think it's awesome if you can either be requesting your regulars, asking for a favor in terms of leaving positive reviews, having QR codes in your restaurant to leave a review, encouraging the positive interactions and experiences people have to leave reviews, and then using negative reviews also as an opportunity to kind of respond. I think businesses do this a lot better now across, I guess, the internet, but using negative reviews as an opportunity to explain their side and potentially address concerns that other customers might have had they just seen that review with no response to it.
Yep.
So I think, restaurants or bars or cafes, they can show a lot of class and kind of, basically use that as a frequently asked question kind of section by responding to reviews. So good or bad, I would always encourage venues to be responding to those.
Yeah, and you touched on something as well, like QR codes on tables and those kinds of things, because there's been quite a few restaurants that I've been to recently. Obviously, there is this shift from instead of ordering at the bar or having someone come over and take your order, it's a QR code. Fonda does it. Quite a few restaurants do it. And at the end of that, obviously, you get sent a receipt, and if it's done in an app or if it's done just on like Open Table or whatever, you can actually send like a review request. So like I ordered fish and chips the other night. I was making burgers and I could not have chips with chicken salt.
Of course.
I ordered them online, and at the end of it, it was like, your order's ready. What was your experience like? And you could just give it a star ranking. So it's super easy to do. And it can really boost the visibility of your business.
Well, totally. Like you just said, and I'm very much the same. If you see restaurants with 2s or 3s in their star rating, if you've got other options, you just naturally, that visual cue of that star rating is actually super powerful. So anything you can be doing to be improving that or utilizing that, if you've got a positive one, have that also linked on your website. Also be calling that out elsewhere, showcasing your reviews elsewhere, and like making that really kind of a tool. But I think anything you can be doing to kind of attract those reviews for positive experiences are really, really powerful.
Absolutely. And I think tying that into consumer psychology, which is a really important part as well, is obviously when we're engaging with a business for the first time, whether it be hospo, whether it be e-com, whether it be service-based business, we need to reduce the risk of engaging with that business, right? Because if I've never worked with you before, how do I know I'm going to like you? How do I know that your service is good? So what these reviews do, and what the use of images do, and all building that trust and that credibility, is it helps to reduce the buyer's risk of engaging with you for the first time. So if you have no Google reviews, or maybe you've got 2 and they're really poor, and that gives you a 2 out of 5, no one's going to visit your restaurant and no one's going to go there unless you're the only person open, which also isn't a great sign.
Totally.
You don't want people coming there because there's nothing else. You want people coming there because like you stand out and your business really stands out and you have a really great offering. So that's the reason that when we talk about these reviews and building trust, that's kind of the reason why, and it's really important. Because it does not only just build your credibility, but it also helps to reduce that person's risk. So it opens up the door and reduces those barriers of them engaging with you as a first-time customer. Yeah,
totally. People, whether we'd like to admit it or not, we're sheep. So we don't want to feel like the first person to do something, to buy something, to attend a venue. So anything you can do to showcase that social proof, I guess we call it in marketing. And that there's hundreds or thousands of people who've done this thing and you're not the first. They did it and they enjoyed it. In kind of any kind of business is really, really powerful. So that often is in the form of reviews on Google My Business listings.
And so a lot of what we're talking about also ties into your website as well. So obviously we're talking about your Google My Business listing, but through that Google My Business listing, people can access your website. And so one of the most important things, and we've spoken about it quite a lot on the podcast and through the Inflection community as well, is having a website that's optimized for mobile.
Yes. I mean, again, if we're going anecdotally, myself and my friend, my partner, will look for restaurants rarely on a laptop or a computer. We'll do it on our phone. And if the website is really janky, like it's tough to use or tough to read, or the text kind of falls out the side of the phone, then it's off-putting a little bit. So similar to the Google My Business listing, if you have your opening hours and you have a menu that's available, ideally a menu I don't have to download as a PDF either. I see that a bit too. Anything, again, if you put on the hat of someone who isn't technically savvy, whether you are or not, you kind of want to cater for everyone. So if you can reduce all those barriers for people finding out the information they might want to know before attending your venue, that's super beneficial.
I actually cannot remember the last time I went to a restaurant that I didn't know that, or I hadn't been to before, that I didn't look at the menu first.
Yeah, 100%.
I just can't. It's just part of my process. Too much risk, part of my process. Or even if it's a restaurant that's recommended to me by somebody, I'll still look at the menu. And if there's no menu, I'm unlikely to go.
Well, you're actually a really good example because you think about you've got dietary requirements.
Yep.
Hope I'm not sharing too much.
It's fine. But I'm pretty open with the dietary requirements.
Yeah, the dietary requirements. But yeah, you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people who have that. So whether they're vegetarian or gluten intolerant or whatever that may be, they're especially going to want to see a menu and know that there's options available for them. Otherwise, if they're with 2 or 3 other people or their partner and deciding where they want to go, and there is a restaurant that does have that information and definitely caters for your dietary requirements, of course they're going to go to that venue.
Yeah. And I think just like a little fact on that is like Melbourne is the allergy capital of the world.
As in we cater the best for allergies, or we have the most?
We have the most.
Oh, well,
so our percentage of allergies per capita. So if you work in the hospitality business, then it's a growing demographic.
Yeah. Well, again, that's great information to be having on your Google My Business. So you think about trying to condense as much information into the first touch point you have with a potential customer. Mm-hmm. Have that listed on your Google My Business in the description.
Yeah.
So that people can at a glance understand that you cater for them, basically.
Yeah. So obviously we're talking about reducing risk, reducing those barriers, and I guess like really showcasing the portfolio of what we can do in the food that we offer. And through the reviews and those kinds of things. Obviously, social media is a massive tool as well.
Massively.
So can you talk us through a little bit about like the benefits of utilizing social media frequently, what organic social media has to do with it, engagement, those kinds of things? How does it play a role?
Totally. Well, I would imagine or think of your Facebook page as similarly to your Google My Business listing, because that does have that information generally readily available. So that is it also has a section for reviews as well, which can kind of play a factor there too. But yeah, it has, you can put dietary requirements that you cater for. You can have your opening hours. So making sure, and your menu and things like that. So making sure that's all updated as well as a first touch point. And as a bare minimum. And then, I think it is a increasingly noisy space, I would say, in terms of hospitality venues that do organic social media well. But there's still, in comparison to something like e-commerce where there's way more noise, there's still a lot of room for cut through if you can get it right and engage with the community. And so much of that, from what I'm seeing, is showcasing you and your staff and your venue's personality, like in an authentic way, and then also engaging with the people that bother to engage with you online. So similar to your Google reviews, replying to every single one, reply to as many comments as you possibly can. Show that you're actually not just there for a sale, not just there to sell a meal or sell a drink. You are there to have a really authentic engagement with your community and with someone who might attend your venue. So engaging with them in the comments, replying to messages, again, thinking about people I go out and eat with or friends of mine, they might even message venues about things like dietary requirements or a booking or something like that. So making sure you actually take the time to reply to those when they come through in a timely manner could be the difference between whether they eat at your venue or not, or drink at your venue, whatever kind of you do.
Yep. And I think that kind of goes into the word of mouth part of it as well. So obviously the social media, it's that one-on-one interaction, if it is a direct message, for example. But knowing that, like, if I go to a really great restaurant and I love it and they've really catered to my dietaries or whatever, then it's something that I'm recommending to a lot of other people. So it's like you might be engaging or communicating or connecting with one individual person, but the impact that can have in the flow on effect, I think, is really important. But I think that also kind of dives into the types of content. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of how to really communicate and showcase what you do and really share your passion for your business and for the food. And it's something that we talk about when we do marketing strategies with people as well, is those content pillars. Mm-hmm. And so what we mean by that is really breaking up the type of information that we're sharing on a different cadence, so that it's not, like you said, it's not always a hard sell. It's not always buy this product or come in at this time or here's a happy hour or ways that we can kind of pull people in. But it's showcasing different areas of the business, whether it be like educational about the business itself or the team or the behind the scenes, whether it's like just entertaining kind of content. Beth Wilson from St. Jack, we did a podcast episode with her and she talks about this really, really well, and how you can really find entertaining and engaging content and tie it into your business. And then obviously there's that sales part, which is the book a table, the come in, here's the happy hour from this time. But can you talk us a little bit around like different types of content that can perform really well on social media, and what kind of the psychology is behind some of that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like anything. It's a mix, it's a blend, it's a balance. So not doing one professional photo shoot and then that is your Instagram photos for the next 6 months. I see that a lot. It's creating a variety and consistently mixing that up. One, the algorithm and the platform itself favors that kind of variety in your content.
Yeah.
At its core, those platforms are trying to keep people engaged on the platform, and people get sick of the same sort of thing, consuming the same static image, the same sort of video. So if you do mix that up, it's naturally going to work in your favor. And then again, from a psychology perspective, if I'm a follower of a certain business and they only ever post certain types of content, I'll get sick of it. I might unfollow, or at least I'll never engage with it, and then Instagram will stop showing it to me. So mixing that up, I would say the classic types in the hospo industry in particular are like professional shoots of food, or like at least like really clean, nice looking images of your food or drinks or your cocktails or whatever that is. Again, for the people that eat with their eyes, they might just log onto an Instagram to check out a restaurant and see that burger, that cocktail, whatever, looks amazing. And that might be enough to get them, certainly for my partner, it would be. So yeah, for the visual element of that. And then from the kind of community engagement piece, showcasing your personality piece, that more raw, I guess you can think of it a bit more like TikTok style, lower production value, I guess, as well. People talk a lot in this space about like EGCs or employee content. So that might be talking to your chef that day and talking about like what their favorite meal at the moment is. That might be talking to your like bar staff. That might be getting your bar staff or your waiting staff to kind of interview some of your regulars. I literally had my local cafe do that to me the other day. So shout out the pantry. So yeah, I think really mixing that up and showcasing you and your business and your employees' personality via ideally video content, as well as mixing in that more professional or at least like cleaner imagery of your food and drink, is a really great way to kind of start getting some good engagement.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something really interesting there as well, just as like a bit of a different strategy or a way of kind of communicating your menu is like quite often what we see, or quite often what I see in my social feed, is the way that we communicate like a new, breakfast item or a special for the week is just a photo of it. Whereas I think if you were to interview your chef and be like, cool, what have we got on the menu this week? And it's kind of like a reel that you put together. And then it can also be shared as a story, and then it's also showing up in your feed. That could be used, again, I know we're going to talk about it a little bit in terms of like paid ads and how that can really bring people in. But, if you're saying like, hey, chef, what have we got on the menu this week? And then they're kind of running through it. It's kind of building that one-on-one engagement, because, again, people buy from people and people want to engage with people. So if all you're seeing and all you're being shown is like static imagery of food, it looks good, but like how much better could it be sold if someone was communicating it audibly? And so then, I think then you could follow it up potentially with a static image. But I think if you can kind of bring people in, that can be a really easy way as well. Like going back to that like low production value or lo-fi sort of content, is you're not kind of bringing in a video editor, you're not kind of going away and kind of really chopping something together really beautifully. It really is that live, raw, kind of in the moment footage. And that's what's going to bring people in, because the benefit of that is that people know that it's current.
Yes.
Right? It's something that's been done on the spot on a whim. And so that's like, oh, cool, this is happening right now. So it means that brand's up to date. It means that business is constantly kind of changing and sharing new information. So I think that's a really interesting way, and probably a really exciting way that you could change up what content you're creating.
Totally. I think you hit on a really kind of cool piece in that. If you, in that example of it, getting your chef to communicate what is on what is on the menu this week, and what they put into it. If you generally go to a restaurant and someone's explaining the specials to you, it's generally a wait staff who's not super passionate about that special. And it's not feasible to have your chef go around to every single table and talk about, this is what the special is this week, and this is what I put into it, and this is why I wanted to do it. You can do that with social media, and you can kind of communicate at volume to your community, and bring people in that way. So I think that's a really kind of cool and powerful tool. You can use it just wouldn't be possible in a kind of general physical sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think it dives really nicely into the next thing we really want to chat about is like paid ads and collaborations and those kinds of things. Because obviously we've spent the majority of this podcast the episode so far talking about organic content and like things that you can control without really investing any spend in.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of opportunity in the paid ad space and something, again, that's not really spoken about a lot, which is why we kind of really want to dive into this part. And I think that, again, any kind of hospitality owners or managers that are listening right now, I think this is something that, get out your pen and paper or like get ready to hit pause and rewind, because I think there's some really golden nuggets in here that's really going to help to, I guess, like turn up the volume on your marketing and actually bring new customers in the door as well, because that's what it's all about, right? Is in order to grow, you need to be bringing more people in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think it's particularly on the paid social side of things, like we talked about at the top of the episode, it's very much focused on e-commerce or service-based businesses because it's easier to track an ROI on it. So I think that would be the caveat with the paid social side of things for hospitality venues. It's going to be more difficult to prove a direct ROI, and it's probably why a lot of these kinds of businesses avoid running paid ads, because I can't see directly this person viewed this ad, they've then bought a $30 meal, and therefore I have generated revenue based off that ad.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not as tangible in that sense, but certainly we think there's a lot more control you can get as opposed to your kind of organic posting, which again is a powerful tool. But there's a lot more control you can get in terms of who you're getting your content in front of, and more, I guess, forcing the algorithms to get in front of new people that aren't in your ecosystem already, which can be a little bit more challenging if you don't have regular and really strong organic content. So, yeah, I think there's a few things we really like about, obviously it's not suited to every hospitality venue, but for a lot, things we really like about using paid social ads like Facebook and Instagram ads, even potentially TikTok ads, but that sort of thing, to really bring in new customers. So things like timeliness we've got here. So you can choose when you run ads and when people see them. So like I think it'd be awesome if there'd be some, say when we work in the CBD, if there's a bar in the CBD that knows it gets a bit of an after work crowd and it has a happy hour from 4 to 6 on a Friday, how cool is it that you could run an ad and specify that it runs from maybe 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. that Friday to people in the local area, and ideally is engaging content, of course, pushing them to that, because that's the time they'll be thinking about, where do I go for the after work drinks today? Yep. Same on a Thursday. If you bother to have a promotion like a happy hour or like, I used to work in Cremorne where there's Agency Central, so there'd be places or pubs that would have like a lunch meal. If you ran ads to everyone in that area, like you ran just ads in that suburb that were engaging about the food that's on that lunch menu that you get a deal for, and you ran that between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. or whenever that's kind of going to be relevant, you're literally getting into people's feeds as they're thinking about that thing. So I think that's something you can't control nearly as much in terms of timeliness, other than when you post content for organic side of things. So you're relying a bit more you're relying a bit more on the platform to actually push you in front of those people versus paying for it, where you can actually force it to get in front of eyeballs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really huge. Localization and timeliness, tapping into people when they want the thing and within a walking radius, ideally, to where you're located.
Yeah.
I think that's super powerful and it's super underrated. And I think there's probably a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of pubs, there's a lot of cafes, locally that have these offers. Like almost every pub has a happy hour of some sort.
Totally.
But it's not getting out there, and all they're doing is posting on their organic socials, which is great if you already follow that business.
Yeah. But how many pubs do you follow? I don't follow. Maybe 2.
Yeah. And we've only been in the city for, 6 months or something. Before that, it wasn't here. So it was like, we don't follow those pubs. So we're new people to the area. That how are we going to find out that happy hour exists for Friday knockoffs?
Totally.
Unless we're getting ads about it.
Totally. If you're an espresso martini fan and you're getting ads about espresso martinis for $10 between 4 and 6 on Thursdays, then you're way more inclined to go to that place over just the closest restaurant or bar or whatever.
Yep. Are you an espresso martini fan?
Huge. Cheers.
I was like, you're drawing on something personal there.
Yeah. You know how much coffee I drink. I'm definitely an espresso martini fan.
It's true. So then I guess obviously we've talked about like getting new people in, but then obviously we can retarget existing customers. And that's a really powerful tool through paid advertising as well.
Yeah. So you can specify, say again, using Facebook as the example, you can specify people. If you've got a pixel, which is essentially the tool to kind of track activity on your website that feeds that back to Facebook. Facebook can then, or Meta can retarget people who visited your site, who've engaged with your content, either clicked it, commented, liked, viewed your videos even, and basically stay in their world. Facebook does that a bit already by itself because it knows that's generally the people who are going to engage with you more as people who already have engaged with you. But you can, again, force that to show a certain amount of times or at least a certain amount of frequency that they're going to start seeing that content. So you could have a little bit of your budget assigned to just making sure you're getting in front of your regulars, or people that have kind of visited your site before.
Yeah, absolutely. That's massive. And then obviously I think the other thing we can chat about, obviously we've spoken about like happy hours and specific kind of offers that already exist, but you can also run like competitions or those kinds of things. And that can be a really great way. Again, if you want to drive certain people, maybe maybe there's a trivia night at the pub and whatever, like they're sort of things that you can really advertise to bring more people in as well. Totally.
Well, and it can lend itself to email marketing via things like getting people to sign up via a QR code to go in the draw to win free lunches for the next 6 months or free coffee for the next 2 months or whatever. Give your email over. Now they're in your funnel and you can have a regular email campaign going out about the trivia nights. What is the prize in this week's trivia? What is the new thing on your menu? Started to send out that content and grow that asset that you kind of own in your email database and use different tools to see what attracts more email signups as well and really start to measure what do your community, what do your patrons enjoy the most or why do they are most appealed to your venue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the email marketing part of it's huge as well because obviously what we're talking about is like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of these channels that you don't own and you don't control. I mean, you do control to an extent in terms of advertising and targeting and those kinds of things. But when we talk about email marketing, it's a platform that you totally own and control. You can connect with people. You can shop in their inbox. You're in control of what that communication looks like and when they're receiving it. If you do split testing and you're scheduling emails to go out at certain times. And so something that we really focus on through a lot of the episodes that we talk about, particularly when we talk about marketing, is how can we get as many people into your funnel or your ecosystem as possible. And email marketing is kind of at the end goal of like you want to get people into that email marketing funnel.
Totally.
So that's really, I think the QR code is a really good option there.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other things you could do, you could get really fun with it and you could send out emails or even run ads to people that have engaged with your brand before, not your brand, your venue before. And to claim their special kind of deal, they've got to say a certain word or they've got to come in and say the code to the bar staff or the wait staff who all know. Maybe gamify it a little bit and make it something fun and engaging for your audience. And then through word of mouth, incentivize other people to kind of fall into your funnel, other people to sign up to your email database or attend your venue. And it's a word of mouth thing that if you say this code at this or you say this thing at this venue, and then you can just get people your staff to note down or have some kind of tracking system for how many times you get that or how many times you've used that discount in your POS system. And start to measure a bit of an ROI on that as well. Because again, it's not necessarily going to be in a direct ROI you're tracking otherwise. It's going to be a net between 3 and 4 on Fridays. We usually generate this much and we've been running ads for this but long and that has increased or decreased or not changed at all. So you can be a little bit inventive in the way you start to track that kind of revenue generating kind of system. And start to measure it.
Yeah, I think the gamification is a really interesting point too, because obviously, as we know, when we're talking about like e-com kind of retail businesses, a lot of retail is shifting online, and so brick and mortar. There's this conversation around how can we really improve brick and mortar experiences and gamification. And maybe we can do an entire episode on gamification, the benefits of it. But there is a huge shift towards gamification, particularly in the retail space. But I think it's really easy to translate across to hospitality as a way of having a really strong engagement and a way of building a community. And there have been restaurants I know and cafes that they do this. They do have an offer and you get the particular offer if you show X that you've seen.
Yeah, like screenshot this ad
Exactly.
and show it to the staff, and then you to claim your drink or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, which I think kind of leads really neatly into the next part of it, and the next part of this kind of strategy that we really want to talk about is like influencers, bloggers, partnerships, essentially. So that digital, obviously we've spoken about word of mouth, but that kind of like digital word of mouth, and using other people's I guess like social presence and digital presence as a way of kind of reducing that barrier to entry of getting someone across to your business or getting someone in the door of your restaurant.
Totally.
And so the partnerships is a really strong avenue to engage in.
Yeah. I think it's done a full kind of 360 in the last 5 to 10 years, I would say, in terms of how hospitality venues perceive content creators or influencers. I think it got left a really bad taste in a lot of venues' mouths a few years ago, where there was just a lot of kind of fake influencers or just legit influencers who wouldn't really hold up their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of business owners who now don't dabble in that at all for fear of kind of being ripped off. I might pay this influencer $2,000 and they make one video for me and it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Or they just want free food and I get people reaching out for free food and I feel used. I don't think that is necessarily indicative of everyone who you can collaborate with and get content from. And I would say the TikTokification of the internet as well has also lent itself to not needing people with massive followings to create engaging content for you that has big reach.
Yep.
TikTok, for example, if your content's good, you have not as good a chance of going viral as someone who has a big following.
Yeah.
But you certainly have, and same with Instagram Reels, I'd say, a lot of opportunity to generate a large following if your content is engaging.
Yes.
So if you're getting someone who just makes good content and maybe doesn't have a great big following and then maybe doesn't ask for a whole lot or a whole lot of money, maybe they just want a free meal, that's a really low cost investment for potentially really far reach or really wide reach. So I would look for things that are in your niche. So, the example I thought of before was if you have a Sunday roast or a pub, I guarantee in your city there's someone who's, I don't guarantee it, but depending on how big your city is, but certainly in Melbourne, I know there's people who go around and eat Sunday roasts and review them and rate them. So, of course, engage with that person. They're doing that for free. They're already doing that. It's not like you're paying that influencer to do something they didn't want to do. They're doing that already. How can you collaborate with them? How can you get them to eat at your restaurant, eat your Sunday roast, and get them to showcase that? And similarly, you can find things in your niche. Cronuts had a massive moment like 5 years ago. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes,
but
I remember Cronuts.
Everyone was eating Cronuts. It was really random. Yeah. But in 2024, 2025's version of that, do you already have that on your menu? Or is that something you could create as a special and leverage a trend that already exists? Because everyone in Adelaide is loving Cronuts, I don't know, whatever it is, that you can kind of create content on, get people who are already posting about that type of food or drink it somewhere else and get them to kind of review yours. And they're already getting following or engagement on that. They're already doing it. They might not have a big following. They're probably not going to ask for a whole lot, and get them to showcase your version of that thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's a really good point as well. Like obviously there was Cronuts. Before that it was like ricotta hotcakes, like they kind of went nuts for a while.
Yeah.
So, and there's this kind of trend about like sandwiches,
paninis. Piccolo panini bar is a great example of that.
Exactly. It's a very heavy sandwich office here, and I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not a heavy sandwich person, but it's every lunch it's a sandwich.
Can't go wrong with a sandwich.
But yeah, so I think, again, I know that we've kind of spoken about a lot here in terms of like the overarching strategy, and there's a lot of opportunity, again, going back to the reason that we did this episode is because we've been talking about it a lot, and it's something that's often forgotten about. It's not talked about enough, but there's a huge opportunity here. And again, kind of we are coming into a period where it's warmer weather, people are spending more time outside, people are spending more time out doing things because, again, the season that this kind of brings and the consumer psychology that comes out at this time of year is that people want to spend money.
Yeah.
And so that comes on, it comes on products, it comes on retail, it comes on services, amount of times that people want to get like a deck done or a pool installed. One of our clients installs pools, and they're off the charts because like everyone wants a pool before Christmas, let alone do they know it takes like 8 to 12 weeks to install a pool. But, so it's like there's so many opportunities here for a lot of different industries, but particularly for the food space and the hospitality industry. Also thinking about trying to get in earlier because obviously kind of come December, everyone takes Christmas holidays, everyone's out and ready to go out and engage and like socialize. So if you can kind of be getting ahead of that momentum and really kind of getting your business name or your cafe venue on someone's list of like where they want to go and where they want to check out over that summer season, over their Christmas break, then why not?
Totally.
And a lot of the things that we've spoken about today are low investment. Easy things to action. Obviously, running a hospitality is a lot of work and there's a lot involved. But again, what this can do and the reward that can pay off. Again, I think in terms of like going back to some of the core things that we spoke about, obviously really focusing on leveling up your digital presence. So thinking about like your Google My Business listing, we're talking about your reviews, we're talking about your website and how we can really optimize that for someone's first experience and engagement with your business. The second thing that we really spoke about was building that community and building really great content and engaging content. So replying to questions, replying to comments, creating content that craves attention. So again, we spoke about like how a chef can really introduce specials for the week. And there's obviously a lot of different ways that kind of content can be tweaked for your business, but that's a really important one. And then the final thing that we spoke about was paid advertising and I guess influencers and bloggers. So more of that paid space when you might have to invest some cost or invest some money into getting a reward. But again, tapping into the paid ad space, we're talking about timeliness, localization, how we can really make sure that we're getting in front of people when they're thinking about that thing. And the only way that you can really do that is through paid ads. So I think there's a lot of really great content in this episode. So if you are a hospitality restaurant owner, cafe owner, or you know someone that is, and you want a little bit more support, or even you just want to kind of round table how this could work for you, reach out, send us a DM or book in a free discovery call with me because it's a free conversation that we want to have with you to help you increase the visibility of your business. And we just love talking to business owners and helping them out. So if you have any questions, please reach out. Otherwise, thank you, James, for all of your insights. That was really great. And
thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.